to me. When you got I didn't have to have 500. I didn't have to have 500 amateur fights, and he done something that I wasn't able to do.
Right.
He was able to win 2 gold medals, which is a huge accomplishment.
Right.
Just to go to the Olympics is something huge in itself. And they said, well, guess what? He was the quickest to win a world title than any other fighter. Man, once you fight 300 amateur fights, you're a professional anyway. You're a professional anyway. And you cannot compare a fighter like Lomo to me, or a fighter like Ali, or a fighter like Sugar Ray Leonard. You know the reason why? Because we won our first fight. We won our second fight.
Right.
We won our third fight. So I'm not going to take nothing from Telefimo for what he did the other day. But remember, this guy already had a loss to Salida, and Salida wasn't, quote unquote, the best guy in the world.
Right.
He was solid, and he won a title before, but he wasn't the best guy in the world.
Those are the words of Floyd Mayweather Jr. as he states that you cannot compare himself to Lomachenko, or to compare Lomachenko to him, whichever. And he said the reason why. He said that, first of all, Lomachenko did something that he wasn't able to do. He wasn't able to capture gold, even though it was rigged. Okay, the Olympics was rigged, all right, and he was robbed, and even the fighter that they gave it to know he was robbed. So it's one of those things where Floyd himself knows that Lomachenko did something within himself to do that, and he said, well, hey, I didn't have to fight that many amateur fights to become pro. And when you get to a certain point in the amateurs, if you've had that many fights, you're pro anyway, because you've seen basically everything and every type of style that you need to see. So basically that was Floyd saying, well, hey, why did the hell you take that many amateur fights? That was not necessary. You should have started your career already. You would have been a lot better off than to stay in the Olympics as long as you did. But of course, as you guys know, I've educated you all on the importance of Ukrainian fighters and how they feel about the Olympics versus the professional ranks. A lot of people look at the professional ranks as the creme de la creme, is the pinnacle. But in the Ukraine, they look at the Olympics as that. Okay, that's their elite foundation in which they build everything else on. But they have to have that foundation. If that foundation is Olympic gold, they have that solid foundation to build everything else upon. So, other words, in the Ukraine, they look at the Olympics more so than the professional ranks. Okay. Floyd said, hey, you can't compare him to me or him to Ali or Sugar Ray, because those guys won their first fight, their second fight, their third fight. And the guy that he lost to in his second fight was Orlando Salido, which wasn't, he was a solid fighter, but he wasn't really anybody that was worthy of a loss if Lomachenko was who he's supposed to be. That's what Floyd was saying, okay? Now, if you break down to counterpunch what Floyd is saying, he was saying that Salido had there was no way possible that all the hype, all the buildup, the ring IQ of someone like Vasyl Lomachenko, having all that, doing all he's did in 2 Olympic games, no way in hell was Orlando Salido supposed to win. Not a chance. And he won anyway from a decision. However, it was corrupt. However, he was in Texas, I believe. The referee had it in for him. The referee had shows a blind eye to all the low blows. So, Lomachenko just learned something that day, but it does go in the last round. But I think, again, he started too late. Now, that comparison is valuable, but here's the kicker. Okay, this is something I'm going to counterpunch and knock it all down with this one counterpunch. Floyd sits here and says, you cannot compare me to Lomachenko, but what the hell did he just do through this whole interview? Compare himself to Lomachenko. So Floyd, if you can't compare Lomachenko to yourself and you state that to be truth, stop comparing yourself to Lomachenko. Counterpunch, because you're saying you can't compare me to the likes of Lomachenko. You can't. He can't be compared to me but he did something that I couldn't do. I couldn't do it, and I won my fight. He didn't. But what are you doing, Floyd? You're comparing yourself to Lomachenko. So for future references, don't sit there on camera and compare what you did in the Olympics versus what he did at the Olympics and what he did at the professional rankings at the beginning to what you did at the beginning. Because what are you doing? You're comparing yourself to Lomachenko. And I agree with what he said. But it's the irony kills it because, you're comparing yourself to Lomachenko. So if you do it, other people are going to do it. In fact, other people are going to do that more so now, like I just done, with a counterpunch, with my opinion. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about Floyd Mayweather saying that you cannot compare Loma to himself. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.